A split screen. On one side, a woman in a faded hoodie signing papers with a shaking hand. On the other, a man in a sharp tuxedo laughing with a glass of champagne. The sound of a glass shattering cuts the silence. "Sign the damn papers, Riley! Stop dragging this out!" Gavin screamed, his face twisted with a cruelty that used to be love. "You and your pathetic little data entry hobby. You're dead weight. You're nothing without my bank account backing you up." He threw the pen at her chest. It left a smudge of ink on her white blouse, a stain that looked like a bruise. "Remember this moment, Gavin," Riley whispered, her voice trembling but her eyes dry. "Because when the wheel turns, and it always turns, don't ask me to stop it." He laughed then, a cold, echoing sound. "Honey, the only thing turning is you, turning into a lonely cat lady. Now get out of my house." He didn't know it yet, but he had just insulted the only person who could have saved him from the storm coming his way. The sound of the pen scratching against the divorce decree was louder than a scream in the sterile silence of the lawyer's office. To Riley Edwards, it sounded like a bone snapping, the final fracture of a 10-year life she had built, sanded, polished, and desperately tried to hold together. Across the mahogany table sat Gavin Lennox. He was checking his watch. It was a Rolex Submariner, a gift she had bought him 3 years ago by saving every cent from her little side hustle, as he called it. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the reflection of his own jawline in the window, adjusting the knot of his silk tie. "Are we done?" Gavin sighed, drumming his fingers on the leather armrest. "I have a closing at 4. A real job, Riley. Something you wouldn't understand." Riley placed the pen down gently. She refused to throw it. She refused to give him the reaction he was fishing for. "I understand perfectly, Gavin. You're closing the sale on the downtown loft, the one the zoning commission is investigating." Gavin's head snapped toward her, his eyes narrowing. "That's confidential, and it's none of your business anymore. That's big boy talk. You just stick to your... What is it you do again? Typing numbers into spreadsheets for pennies." Sitting next to Gavin was Hope Payne, his mother. She was a woman made entirely of hairspray and passive aggression. She sniffed, adjusting her pearls. "Oh, Gavin, don't be cruel. It keeps her busy. Some women just aren't built for ambition, darling. Riley was always more suited for domestic support, though she failed at that too." Riley felt the familiar burn in her throat, the desire to scream the truth. For 5 years, while Gavin played the big-shot real estate developer, leveraging assets he didn't own and taking loans he couldn't service, Riley had been the silent engine keeping the lights on. Her typing job was actually high-level forensic data analysis and algorithmic consulting for struggling tech firms. She worked under an NDA-heavy contract, often late into the night. She had paid the mortgage 6 times last year when Gavin's commissions fell through. She had paid off his Audi, but she had done it quietly, moving money into the joint account so his fragile ego wouldn't shatter. "I signed, Gavin," Riley said, her voice steady. "I'm not asking for alimony. I'm not asking for the house. I just want my personal servers and my laptop." Gavin laughed, a barking sound that made the junior associate in the corner flinch. "God, you are pathetic. You're walking away from a $3 million asset portfolio with nothing but a used computer." "This is why I'm leaving you, Riley. No vision. You think small." He leaned forward, the smell of expensive cologne and stale scotch wafting over the table. "I'm doing you a favor. I'm setting you free to go find someone else who likes boring, mousy women who stare at screens all day. I need a partner, a queen. Someone who shines." "Like Daphne?" Riley asked quietly. Gavin didn't even have the grace to look ashamed. "Daphne understands the industry. She's a brand ambassador. She has presence. When she walks into a room, people look. When you walk into a room, Riley, people ask for a refill on their water." Hope chuckled, patting her son's arm. "Well said, Gavin. Daphne is a breath of fresh air." Riley stood up. She smoothed the wrinkles of her skirt, a skirt she had bought at a thrift store because Gavin had spent their clothing budget on golf club memberships. She looked at the man she had loved since college, the man she had supported through 2 bankruptcies and a depression, the man who was now looking at her like she was gum on his shoe. "You're right, Gavin," Riley said. "I do think small. I think about the small details, like the tax liens on your property, like the zoning laws, like the fact that your brand ambassador has a credit score of 400. Details matter." Gavin's face went red. "Get out. Just get out." "I'm going," Riley said, picking up her worn leather satchel. She walked to the door, then paused. She didn't look back. "Keep the house, Gavin. You'll need the equity when the market corrects itself in 6 months." "The market is invincible," Gavin shouted after her. "And so am I." Riley closed the heavy oak door, shutting off his voice. The silence of the hallway washed over her. She walked to the elevator, pressed the down button, and finally, for the first time in years, allowed a single tear to fall. She wasn't crying because she lost him. She was crying because she had wasted so much time making herself small so he could feel big. She pulled out her phone. There was a missed call from a blocked number. She dialed into her voicemail. "Ms. Edwards, this is Wesley Newman's office. He's reviewed the predictive models you sent regarding the lithium supply chain. He wants to meet. Immediately. Don't sign with anyone else until you speak to us." Riley wiped the tear from her cheek. She stepped into the elevator and looked at her reflection in the brass doors. She looked tired. She looked worn out. But for the first time in a decade, she didn't look afraid. 18 months later, Riley Edwards was a ghost. Not the kind that haunted houses, but the kind that haunted balance sheets. She sat in a corner booth of a 24-hour diner in downtown Seattle, the hum of the refrigerator providing a white noise backdrop to the frantic clacking of her keyboard. Her hair, once kept in a severe, wife-appropriate bun to please Hope Payne, was now chopped into a chic, asymmetrical bob that framed her face. She wore a black turtleneck and jeans, utilitarian, sharp, invisible. "You've been here for 6 hours, Rye," a voice said. Riley looked up, blinking her dry eyes. Addison Jennings, her best friend, and arguably the only reason Riley hadn't had a nervous breakdown during the divorce, slid a fresh coffee onto the table. Addison was the opposite of Riley. Loud, colourful, and wearing a vintage leopard print coat. "The code is buggy," Riley muttered, accepting the coffee like a lifeline. "The integration for the oceanic cleanup drones isn't syncing with the satellite data." "English, please," Addison said, sliding into the booth, "or at least human." "The robots aren't talking to the space cameras correctly," Riley translated, cracking a small smile. "Better," Addison said. She pulled a folded newspaper out of her oversized bag. "Speaking of robots and space cameras, have you seen this?" She slapped the paper onto the table. It was the business section of the Seattle Times. The headline read, "Lennox Luxury Real Estate Faces Lawsuit Over Zoning Violations." Below the headline was a picture of Gavin. He looked older, heavier. The sharp jawline was softening and the eyes were frantic. Next to him was Daphne Carter, looking bored and scrolling on her phone, clearly uninterested in the reporters surrounding them. Riley stared at the photo. "He didn't listen," she said softly. "I told him about the wetlands buffer zone 2 years ago. He never listened to you," Addison said, stabbing a fork into a slice of cherry pie she had ordered. "He thought your brain was an accessory he didn't know how to wear. Karma is coming for him, Rye. It's taking the scenic route, but it's coming." "I don't care about his karma," Riley lied. She did care. She wanted to see him understand, not suffer exactly. She wasn't cruel, but she wanted him to know. She wanted him to realize that the typing he mocked was the very intelligence that could have saved him. "I care about the Newman account." "Right. The elusive Wesley Newman." Addison lowered her voice. "Have you actually met the guy yet? Or are you still communicating through encrypted emails like he's Batman? I meet him tonight, Riley said, her stomach doing a nervous flip. Final vetting. If he signs off on the Greenstream logistics platform I built, I go from freelance consultant to, well, something else. Partner, Addison corrected. Say it. You're not his assistant. You're the architect of his new supply chain. Riley looked down at her hands. They were the same hands that had scrubbed Gavin's floors and ironed his shirts. It feels surreal, Addie. Gavin convinced me for so long that I was lucky he put up with me, that my work was just busy work. Gavin is a thumb drive in a world of cloud computing, Addison scoffed. He has limited capacity and is easily lost. You, my friend, are the internet. Riley's phone buzzed. A secure message notification. Location confirmed. The Obsidian Lounge. 9 p.m. Come alone. WN. It's time, Riley said, closing her laptop. Go get 'em, Tiger. Addison grinned. And wear the red lipstick. It scares men. The Obsidian Lounge was the kind of place Gavin would kill to get into, but never could. It wasn't flashy. There was no sign out front, just a heavy steel door in an alleyway that required a biometric scan. It was where the real power in the city drank, not the loud money, but the quiet, terrifying money. Riley was escorted to a private booth in the back. The lighting was low, amber and shadow. Sitting there was Wesley Newman. The billionaire tech mogul looked nothing like the magazines. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing a faded grey t-shirt and a pair of glasses that looked like they belonged in the 1950s. He was younger than people thought, maybe 35, with messy dark hair and eyes that were intensely, unsettlingly intelligent. He didn't stand up when she approached. He just gestured to the seat opposite him. Riley Edwards, he said. His voice was gravelly, tired. You fixed the lithium bottleneck in 4 days. My internal team has been trying to do it for 6 months. Your internal team was looking at the mining output, Riley said, sitting down. She didn't fidget. She locked eyes with him. The problem wasn't the mines. It was the shipping lane congestion in the South Pacific caused by seasonal storm patterns. I rerouted the algorithm to account for meteorological data. Wesley stared at her for a long moment. He took a sip of sparkling water. You used weather patterns to fix a supply chain. Everything is connected, Riley said. You can't isolate the data. That's why your projections were failing. Wesley leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. It transformed him from an exhausted coder into the visionary the world admired. You know, my HR director told me you were a housewife for 10 years. Riley stiffened. I was a freelance analyst working from a home office. No need to get defensive, Wesley waved a hand. I admire it. You did this work in the margins, in the cracks of a life that didn't appreciate you. That makes you hungry. I like hungry. He slid a black folder across the table. What is this? Riley asked. The future, Wesley said. I'm launching a new division. Newman Eco. Sustainable infrastructure for developing nations. I don't want you to consult on it, Riley. Riley opened the folder. The contract inside made her breath hitch. The salary was more than Gavin had made in his best 5 years combined. But it was the title that stopped her heart. Chief Operations Officer and Managing Partner. Partner? Riley whispered. I need a brain that sees the whole picture, Wesley said. I'm the dreamer. I build the tech. You make it work in the real world. You're the grounding wire. I need a partner, Riley, not an employee. I have 50,000 employees. I have 0 partners. Riley looked at the signature line. This was it, the validation she had starved for. There is one condition, Wesley said, his tone darkening slightly. Riley looked up, wary. Which is? We launch at the Autumn Gala next week. It's a black tie event. The press will be there. The board will be there. It's a Shark Tank. You have to stand on that stage next to me and own it. No hiding, no ghost in the machine. You have to be the face of this. Riley thought of Gavin. She thought of his sneering face telling her she had no presence. She thought of Daphne, glowing and vapid, hanging on his arm. "I'm not a public speaker," Riley said. "I don't need a speaker," Wesley said intensely. "I need a leader. Can you handle the spotlight, Riley? Because once we announce this, your anonymity is gone." Riley picked up the pen, a heavy, expensive fountain pen this time, not the cheap plastic one from the divorce lawyer's office. The weight felt good in her hand. "I'm done hiding," Riley said. She signed her name. The ink flowed smooth and black, permanent. "Good," Wesley said, clinking his glass against hers. "Because I hear your ex-husband is on the guest list. He bought a table to try and pitch me some underwater real estate deal." Riley froze. "Gavin will be there? He spent $10,000 for the privilege of breathing the same air as me." Wesley grinned, a wolfish expression. "I think it's time he met my new boss." The night of the Newman Tech Autumn Gala, the city of Seattle looked like it was carved out of diamonds. The venue was the Glass House, a structure suspended over the bay, offering panoramic views of the water and the skyline. Gavin Lennox adjusted his tuxedo jacket as he stepped out of the rented limousine. It was a stressful night. The lawsuit regarding the wetlands was draining his liquidity, and he needed a win. He needed Wesley Newman to invest in the Lennox Heights project. If Newman bought in, the zoning commission would back off. Money like that acted as a shield. "Smile, babe," Gavin hissed at Daphne. Daphne yawned, checking her makeup in her compact mirror. She wore a dress that was cut too low and comprised of too many sequins. It screamed, "Look at me," in a room full of people who preferred, "Whisper to me." "My feet hurt, Gav. And why do we have to be here? These tech nerds are boring." "Because, Daphne," Gavin gritted his teeth, grabbing her arm a little too tightly, "this nerd is worth $40 billion, and we need his money because someone maxed out the platinum card in Milan last month." "I needed boots," Daphne shrugged. "Don't be such a buzzkill. Where's your mom?" "Mother is inside, scouting the table," Gavin said. He put on his best salesman smile as they approached the red carpet. "Showtime." Inside, the room was a sea of understated elegance. The men wore bespoke Italian wool. The women wore vintage silk and heirlooms. Gavin felt a prickle of insecurity. He was wearing a designer label, but he felt like he was wearing a costume. They found their table near the back, the cheap seats for the $10,000 tier. Hope Payne was already there, critiquing the centerpiece. "The flowers are wilting," Hope sniffed as they sat down. "And the waiter has a tattoo on his wrist. Very low class." "Focus, mother," Gavin said, scanning the room. "I need to find Newman before the speeches start." "I heard a rumor." Hope leaned in, her eyes gleaming with gossip. "They say Newman is announcing a partner tonight. Someone secret. Probably some Silicon Valley prodigy." "Whoever it is, I need to charm them," Gavin said. He stood up. "I'm going to the bar. Daphne, stay here and don't look bored." Gavin weaved through the crowd, his eyes scanning for the billionaire. Instead, he bumped into a figure near the service entrance. A woman was standing with her back to him, speaking into a headset. She was wearing a dress that stopped him in his tracks. It was midnight blue velvet, sleek, hugging every curve, with a back that plunged dangerously low. It was sophisticated, powerful, and utterly commanding. Gavin, instinctively drawn to expensive things, stepped closer. "Excuse me," he used his charm voice. "I don't suppose you know where Mr. Newman is holding court." The woman turned around. Gavin's glass of scotch nearly slipped from his hand. It was Riley. But it wasn't the Riley he knew. The mousy, hunched woman in the oversized cardigans was gone. This woman stood 3 inches taller in stiletto heels. Her makeup was flawless, sharp, emphasizing her high cheekbones. Her eyes were cold steel. "Hello, Gavin," she said. Her voice was different too, lower, resonant. Gavin blinked, his brain misfiring. "Riley, what are you doing here?" He looked at her headset, then at the service door. A sneer curled his lip, relief flooding his system. Oh, I see. You're working the event, catering coordinator, or did you finally put that organizational skill to use as a glorified party planner? Riley removed the earpiece. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't place. It wasn't anger, it was pity. "I am working, yes, unlike you, who paid to be here." Gavin laughed, loud enough for heads to turn. Daphne and Hope appeared at his elbow, drawn by the commotion. "Oh my God!" Daphne giggled, covering her mouth. "Is that the ex? Why is she dressed like that? Did she steal it from the coat check?" "Riley, really?" Hope clucked her tongue, looking Riley up and down with disdain. "I know things must be tight since the divorce, but sneaking into a gala to serve drinks, it's beneath the Lennox name. You kept the name, didn't you? How embarrassing for Gavin." "I didn't keep the name," Riley said calmly. "I went back to Edwards the day the papers were signed." "Listen, Riley." Gavin stepped into her personal space, dropping his voice to a menacing whisper. "You need to leave. I have a very important business pitch tonight. I can't have my ex-wife clearing tables and making things awkward. How much is your shift paying? $200? Here." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a money clip. He peeled off $300 bills and shoved them toward her cleavage. "Take 300. Go out the back door. Don't embarrass me." Riley looked at the money, then up at his face. The air around them seemed to drop 10 degrees. The people nearby stopped talking. They sensed the violence in the gesture. "You think I'm here to serve you?" Riley asked softly. "That's all you were ever good for," Gavin spat. "Serving, supporting, being the background noise. Now take the money and go." Suddenly, the lights in the main hall dimmed. A spotlight hit the main stage. The booming voice of the announcer filled the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of Newman Technologies, Wesley Newman." Wesley walked onto the stage. He looked uncomfortable in his tux, but his energy was electric. He grabbed the microphone. "Thank you all for coming," Wesley said. "Tonight isn't just a party, it's a revolution. For years, Newman Tech has been looking for a way to merge profitability with sustainability. We failed, over and over again." Gavin smirked at Daphne. "Here comes the pitch. Watch me work the room after this." "We failed," Wesley continued, "because we were arrogant. We thought we had all the answers. But 6 months ago, I met someone who showed me that the answer wasn't in the hardware. It was in the data, in the details that everyone else ignored." Wesley scanned the crowd, his eyes locked onto the back of the room, onto Gavin, and the woman standing in front of him. "She's the most brilliant logistical mind I have ever encountered. She didn't just fix our problems, she reinvented our entire operational model, and I am honored to announce that she has agreed to lead our new global division as managing partner." Gavin frowned. "Managing partner? Who is he talking about?" Wesley extended his hand toward the darkness where Gavin and Riley stood. "Ladies and gentlemen," Wesley's voice rang out with clear, undeniable respect. "Please welcome my partner, Ms. Riley Edwards." The spotlight swung through the room. It flew over the heads of the bankers, the politicians, the celebrities. It landed squarely on Riley. Gavin froze. The hand holding the $300 remained extended, frozen in a tableau of humiliation. He looked at the stage. He looked at the spotlight. He looked at his ex-wife. Riley didn't look at Gavin. She didn't look at the money. She simply brushed past him, her shoulder checking his chest hard enough to make him stumble back into Daphne. "Hold that thought, Gavin," Riley said, her voice cool and carrying in the sudden silence of the crowd. "I have to go give a keynote speech. Try the crab cakes. They're on the house." She walked toward the stage, her head high, into the light, leaving Gavin Lennox standing in the dark, holding his petty cash, while the entire room erupted in applause for the woman he had thrown away. The morning after the gala, the world looked different to Riley Edwards. It wasn't just the view from her new corner office on the 40th floor of the Newman Tower, which overlooked the grey steel of the Seattle skyline. It was the silence. For 10 years, her life had been filled with the noise of Gavin's demands, his mother's criticisms, and the constant low-humming anxiety of trying to be enough. Now, the only sound was the soft whir of the high-end server farm cooling systems and the respectful quiet of a team waiting for her instructions. The Asian markets are reacting well to the green stream announcement, Wesley Newman said, leaning against the doorframe. He was holding 2 cups of coffee, black, no sugar, just how she liked it. He had remembered. Gavin hadn't known how she took her coffee after a decade of marriage. Riley turned away from the window, taking the cup. The stock is up 8%, but the logistics in Jakarta are still messy. I need to fly a team out there next week to overhaul the local port authority integration. Wesley smiled, walking over to sit on the edge of her massive glass desk. You've been the managing partner for 12 hours, and you're already booking flights to Indonesia. Do you ever rest, Riley? I rested for 10 years, Wesley, she said, her voice sharp but not unkind. Or at least I was dormant. I have a lot of time to make up for. Wesley nodded, his expression turning serious. Speaking of the past, security stopped a man in the lobby 20 minutes ago. He didn't have an appointment, but he was demanding to see you. Said he was family. Riley sighed, the warmth of the coffee doing little to thaw the sudden chill in her chest. Gavin. He made a scene, Wesley said, threatened to sue the security guard for obstructing a high-net-worth individual. I had them escort him out, but he left a folder for you. Wesley slid a manila envelope across the desk. It wasn't the sleek black leather of business contracts. It was cheap, wrinkled paper. Riley opened it. Inside was a legal demand letter. Gavin wasn't suing for money, not yet. He was demanding a re-evaluation of marital assets based on concealed earning potential. He was claiming that her job at Newman Tech was secured during the marriage, and therefore he was entitled to a cut of her signing bonus. He thinks he owns my brain, Riley said, dropping the letter like it was toxic waste. He thinks because I developed the algorithm while I was married to him, he owns the intellectual property. Does he? Wesley asked. He didn't look worried, just curious. No, Riley said firmly. I wrote the core code on a laptop I bought with my inheritance from my grandmother. I paid for the server space with cash I made selling my jewelry. He didn't pay a dime. In fact, he constantly told me to stop wasting electricity on my hobby. Good, Wesley stood up. Then let him flail. But be careful, Riley. A drowning man will grab onto anything to stay afloat, even if he has to pull you down with him. Across town, Gavin Lennox was indeed drowning. He sat in his plush office at Lennox Luxury Real Estate, but the air smelled of stale panic. His desk, usually organized with military precision, was covered in overdue notices and threatening letters from the Zoning Commission. You can't just barge into Newman Tower, Gavin, Hope Payne said. She was pacing the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood like gunshots. It looks desperate, and we Lennoxes are never desperate. I am desperate, Mother. Gavin slammed his hand on the desk. Do you know what happened this morning? The bank froze the construction line of credit for Lennox Heights. They saw the lawsuit. They saw the zoning violation reports. So fix it, Hope snapped. Charm the zoning commissioner. Take him to dinner. I can't, Gavin roared, because the new commissioner is a stickler for data compliance. And guess who overhauled their compliance system 3 years ago as a freelance contractor? Riley. Hope stopped pacing. Her face paled beneath the layers of foundation. She planned this, Hope whispered. The little viper. She planted these landmines years ago. She didn't plant them, Gavin muttered, rubbing his temples. She just didn't stop me from stepping on them. She warned me. She told me the buffer zones were illegal. I told her to shut up and stick to typing. The door to his office swung open. Daphne Carter walked in, carrying 3 shopping bags from Neiman Marcus. She looked oblivious to the tension in the room. "Babe, my card got declined at the valet," she pouted, dropping the bags on the sofa. "It was so embarrassing. I had to use my debit card." Gavin looked at Daphne, really looked at her, for the first time in months. He saw the shallowness in her eyes, the complete lack of substance. He compared her to Riley standing on that stage in the velvet dress, commanding the respect of billionaires. "Take the bags back, Daphne," Gavin said coldly. "Excuse me?" Daphne laughed nervously. "Take them back. We're broke," Gavin said. "Actually, I'm broke. You're just a parasite." Daphne's mouth dropped open. "How dare you? I am building your brand." "You're destroying my liquidity," Gavin shouted. "Get out. Go return the shoes and fix the credit card problem, or don't come back to the condo tonight." Daphne burst into tears and ran out of the room. Hope Payne watched her go with a sneer. "Useless girl," Hope muttered. Then she turned her predatory gaze back to her son. "We need leverage, Gavin. If Riley won't give us money out of the goodness of her heart, which she clearly lacks, we need to force her hand. We need to find something on Wesley Newman, or something on her." "There is nothing." Gavin slumped in his chair. "She's squeaky clean. She doesn't drink. She doesn't gamble. She doesn't have affairs." "Everyone has secrets," Hope said, smoothing her pearls. "And I know just who to call to find them. Remember that private investigator I used on your father?" Gavin looked up. A dark, ugly hope bloomed in his chest. "Do it. Dig up everything. If she wants to play big league, let's show her how dirty the game really gets." 2 weeks later, Riley was in the middle of a high-stakes negotiation with a delegation from the European Union regarding sustainable shipping lanes. The meeting was going well, her data was irrefutable, and her presentation was flawless. Her phone, sitting face down on the table, vibrated. Then it vibrated again, and again. Addison Jennings, who was now working as Riley's executive assistant, a job she accepted on the condition she could wear whatever she wanted, poked her head into the conference room. Sorry, Ms. Edwards," Addison said, her face pale. "You need to take a break. It's urgent." Riley excused herself and stepped into the hallway. "What is it, Addie? Is the server down?" "No," Addison whispered, handing her a tablet. "It's the tabloids. Look." Riley looked at the screen. The website The Seattle Scoop had a headline that made her stomach turn. "Billionaire's new partner, from housewife to homie wrecker." Ex-husband claims neglect and emotional abuse. The article was a masterpiece of fiction. It quoted an anonymous source close to the family, which sounded suspiciously like Hope Payne, claiming that Riley had been cold, distant, and obsessed with her secret online life, neglecting her husband while he worked himself to the bone. It implied that her relationship with Wesley Newman had started during the marriage, painting Gavin as the heartbroken victim of a cheating wife. "He's trying to control the narrative," Riley said, her hand shaking slightly. "He knows he can't win in court, so he's trying to win in the court of public opinion. He wants to embarrass Wesley, so he'll fire me." "Wesley isn't going to fire you over gossip," Addison said fiercely. "But this is gross, Rye. He's talking about your coldness in the bedroom. It's humiliating." Riley felt the heat rise in her cheeks. It was a violation. Gavin was taking their private struggles caused by his own selfishness, and weaponizing them. "Where is he?" Riley asked. "He's holding a press conference regarding the Lenox Heights development at 2:00 p.m., Addison said, trying to spin his zoning fraud as bureaucratic overreach and using his personal tragedy as a shield. Riley looked at her watch. It was 1:15 p.m. "Cancel my afternoon," Riley said. "I'm going to pay Gavin a visit." "Do you want security?" Addison asked. "No," Riley said, her eyes hard. "I don't need muscle. I have something better. I have the truth." She walked back into her office and opened her secure server. She navigated to a folder she had archived 3 years ago. It was labelled, "Gavin, backup, do not delete." Riley had always handled the household finances, but she had also handled the digital backups for Gavin's company because he was too cheap to hire an IT guy. She had automated the backups of his emails, his texts, and his financial ledgers. She hadn't looked at them since the divorce. She hadn't wanted to. But now she opened the file for Lennox Heights zoning. She scrolled through the emails, and there it was, a chain of emails between Gavin and a contractor named Red Hook Excavation. "Gavin, I know the survey says there are protected wetlands. Just bury the pipes anyway. If we get caught, I'll claim ignorance. Just get it done before the inspector comes on Tuesday." Red Hook: "That's a felony, Mr. Lennox. If the pipes burst, that runoff goes straight into the drinking water supply." Gavin: "I don't pay you to be a moral compass. I pay you to dig. Do it, or I destroy your reputation." Riley stared at the screen. This wasn't just corner cutting. This was environmental negligence. It was criminal. She printed the email chain. She grabbed her coat. "Addie," Riley said on her way out, "call Wesley. Tell him to short sell Lennox luxury real estate stock. Tell him it's going to zero by close of business." The press conference was being held on the sidewalk in front of the stalled construction site of Lennox Heights. It was a chaotic scene. Reporters were shouting questions, and Gavin, looking sweaty but defiant, stood on a makeshift podium. Hope Payne stood next to him, dabbing her dry eyes with a handkerchief. "My wife?" "Ex-wife," Gavin corrected himself, looking into the cameras with practiced sadness. "Was a talented woman, but she was troubled. She abandoned our marriage for the allure of Silicon Valley billions. And now, as I try to build homes for the community, her new partners are using their influence to block my permits. It is a vendetta." "Mr. Lennox, Mr. Lennox," a reporter shouted, "is it true you're suing for spousal support?" "I am merely asking for fairness," Gavin proclaimed. "I supported her hobbies for a decade. I nurtured her talent." A black town car screeched to a halt at the curb. The door opened and Riley stepped out. She didn't shout. She didn't scream. She just walked through the crowd. The reporters, recognizing the woman from the Newman Gala, parted like the Red Sea. Cameras turned away from Gavin and swiveled toward her. Gavin froze. "Riley, this is a private press event." "It's a public sidewalk, Gavin," Riley said. She stopped at the base of the podium. She looked up at him. She looked up at Hope. "What are you doing here?" Hope hissed. "You have no shame." "I'm here to give you a choice, Gavin," Riley said, her voice calm enough for the microphones to pick up. "You can stop. You can drop the lawsuit. You can retract the lies about me and Wesley, and you can admit to the zoning board that you made a mistake with the wetlands survey." Gavin laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "A mistake? I made no mistake. This is a witch hunt." "It's not a witch hunt," Riley said, holding up the manila folder she had brought. "It's an audit." Gavin's eyes locked onto the folder. He recognized the color coding. It was his old filing system. "If you admit it," Riley said, "if you take responsibility right now on camera for the environmental damage, you might avoid prison. You'll lose the project, yes. You'll go bankrupt, yes. But you will keep your freedom, and you will keep a shred of dignity." "You're bluffing," Gavin sneered. "You have nothing. You're just a secretary who got lucky." "I'm not a secretary, Gavin," Riley said softly. "I'm the backup system." She pulled out a single sheet of paper, the email regarding the wetlands cover-up, and handed it to the reporter from the Seattle Times standing next to her. "You might find this interesting," Riley said to the reporter. "It's dated 3 years ago." The reporter scanned the page. His eyes went wide. "Mr. Lennox," the reporter shouted, waving the paper, "did you authorize the illegal burial of waste pipes into a protected water table? We have an email here with your signature." The color drained from Gavin's face so fast he looked like a corpse. The other reporters swarmed the Times journalist, snapping photos of the document. "That's fake! She forged it!" Gavin screamed, pointing a trembling finger at Riley. "She's a hacker! She faked it!" It's digitally signed with your encryption key, Gavin, Riley said, her voice filled with a sad finality. The one I set up for you. The one you never changed because you said passwords were for paranoid people. Gavin lunged off the podium, grabbing for the paper. "Give me that!" Security guards stepped in, holding him back. The cameras flashed blindingly. Hope Payne, realizing the ship was sinking, stepped away from her son, shielding her face with her purse. Riley turned around and walked back to her car. She didn't stay to watch him crumble. She had offered him the truth. He had chosen the lie. Now the weight of his own choices was about to crush him. The fallout was swift and brutal. By the next morning, the Lennox leak was national news. The Environmental Protection Agency had halted all operations at Lennox Heights. The bank not only pulled the credit line, but called in the immediate repayment of all outstanding loans. Riley sat in her office, watching the news on mute. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt heavy. "You gave him a chance," Wesley said quietly. He was sitting on the sofa in her office, reading the legal briefs. "You offered him a way out." "He wouldn't take it," Riley said. "He couldn't conceive of a world where he was wrong. That's his tragedy." "It's not a tragedy, Riley," Wesley said. "It's a choice. And now, he's dangerous." Wesley was right. Gavin wasn't just broke. He was humiliated on a global scale, and a narcissist without an audience is a volatile element. Riley's phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Hello? You ruined me." It was Gavin. His voice was slurred. He was drunk. "You ruined yourself, Gavin," Riley said, signaling Wesley to start a trace on the call. "Where are you?" "I'm at the house." Gavin laughed bitterly. "Our house, the one you didn't want, the one the bank is coming to take tomorrow morning. Daphne left me, you know. Took the car, took the jewelry, even took the damn dog." "Gavin, listen to me," Riley said, her voice steady. "Don't do anything stupid. The lawyers can work out a settlement for the fines. You can start over." "Start over!" Gavin screamed. "I am 40 years old. I was a king. And now I'm nothing because of you." "Because you lied, Gavin," Riley snapped, losing her cool for the first time. "Because you built a life on debt and deceit, and you treated people like garbage. This isn't me doing this to you. This is the bill coming due." There was a long silence on the other end. "You think you're so smart," Gavin whispered. "You and your billionaire boyfriend. You think you can just walk away into the sunset while I burn?" "Gavin, stop." "If I'm burning," Gavin said, his voice dropping to a terrifying calm, "then I'm taking the archives with me. You want your precious servers, the ones you left in the basement, the ones with all your old work, your childhood photos, the only things you asked for in the divorce." Riley's blood ran cold. She had tried to get them for months, but he had changed the locks and refused her entry. "Gavin, don't touch them." "I have a gallon of gasoline here, Riley," Gavin said, "and a lighter. Come and get them, alone. If I see police, I drop the match." The line went dead. Riley stood up, grabbing her keys. "Riley, no." Wesley stood in front of her. "He's unstable. We call the police. We send security. He'll burn it," Riley said, her eyes wide with panic. "Wesley, that server has the original source code for the Greenstream algorithm. It has the only photos of my grandmother. It has everything." "It's just data," Wesley argued. "We can rewrite code." "It's my life," Riley shouted. "It's the 10 years I spent invisible. If he burns that, he erases the only proof that I existed during that marriage." She pushed past him. "Riley!" Wesley grabbed her arm. "I'm coming with you." "He said come alone," Riley said, pulling away. "If he sees you, he'll do it just to spite you." "I know him, Wesley. I can talk him down. I'm the only one who can." "Then take this." Wesley shoved a small black device into her pocket. "GPS panic button. Press it, and my private security team will be there in 3 minutes. They are already en route." 3 minutes, Riley nodded. She ran to the elevator. She knew she was walking into a trap, but she also knew that Gavin was a coward. He used threats, not violence. He wanted an audience. He wanted her to beg. She would go. She would face him one last time, but this time she wasn't going as his wife. She was going as his equal. The driveway of the Lennox estate was dark, the security lights disabled. The house, a sprawling monument to Gavin's ego, loomed against the night sky like a tomb. Riley parked her car at the gate and walked up the long, winding path. The air was cold, but her palms were sweating. She reached the front door. It was unlocked. "Gavin," she called out, her voice echoing in the empty foyer. The furniture was gone, repossessed or sold, she guessed. The marble floors were scuffed. The house smelled of stale whiskey and something sharper. Gasoline. "Down here," a voice slurred from the direction of the basement. Riley gripped the panic button in her pocket. She descended the stairs. The basement, once her sanctuary and prison, was a mess. Wires were ripped from the walls. Her server racks, the ones she had built by hand, were doused in liquid. Gavin sat on a folding chair in the center of the room, holding a silver Zippo lighter. His eyes were bloodshot, his tuxedo shirt unbuttoned and stained. He looked like a king whose kingdom had rotted around him. "You came." Gavin smiled crookedly. "I knew you couldn't resist your toys." "They aren't toys, Gavin," Riley said, stopping at the bottom of the stairs. "They contain terabytes of work, my work. Why are you doing this?" "Because it's not fair," Gavin shouted, the sound bouncing off the concrete walls. He stood up, swaying dangerously. "I followed the rules. I looked the part. I played the game. And you? You sit in your pajamas and type, and you get the billions. You get the applause." He flicked the lighter open. The flame danced, reflecting in his wild eyes. "It wasn't luck, Gavin," Riley said, stepping closer, careful not to startle him. "I worked while you slept. I learned while you partied. You belittled me because my competence made you feel small. But burning this won't make you big again. It will just make you a felon. I'm already a felon." Gavin laughed, a broken, sobbing sound. "The EPA is charging me. The bank is suing me. My mother won't answer my calls. I have nothing left but this fire." "You have a choice," Riley said softly. "Put the lighter down. We can walk out of here. You can plead insanity, stress, whatever. Don't add arson to the list." Gavin looked at the servers, then at Riley. For a second she saw the man she had once loved, the scared boy hiding under the expensive suit. "If I burn it," Gavin whispered, "does it hurt you? Will you finally feel what I feel?" "It will hurt," Riley admitted, "but it won't break me, because I'm not defined by what I own, Gavin. I'm defined by what I can build. You can burn the data, but you can't burn my mind." Gavin's face twisted in rage. Her resilience was the one thing he couldn't conquer. "Then watch it burn." He wound up to throw the lighter. Riley didn't think. She didn't freeze. She lunged. She tackled Gavin just as the lighter left his hand. It spun through the air, missing the gasoline-soaked servers by inches and clattering onto the dry concrete floor. Gavin roared, shoving her back. He scrambled for the lighter. "No!" Riley screamed, kicking the lighter away. Gavin grabbed her ankle, dragging her down. "It has to burn! It all has to burn!" Suddenly, the basement door shattered inward. Beams of blinding tactical light cut through the gloom. "Federal agents! Get on the ground!" Wesley hadn't just called his private security. He had called the FBI, who were already building a case against Gavin for the wire fraud and environmental crimes. Gavin froze, blinking in the light. He looked at the agents, then at Riley, who was scrambling to her feet, breathless and shaking. "Riley!" Gavin whimpered, the fight draining out of him instantly. Tell them it was an accident." Riley looked down at him. He was on his knees, hands raised, begging her to clean up his mess one last time. It would be so easy to pity him, to say a word to soften the blow. She pressed the panic button in her pocket to signal she was safe, then looked him in the eye. "I can't save you from yourself anymore, Gavin," she said quietly. I'm done cleaning up." She turned and walked up the stairs, leaving him to the authorities. The sun was rising by the time Riley walked out of the police station. She had given her statement. Addison was waiting for her with a thermos of tea and a blanket. "He's in holding," Addison said, wrapping the blanket around Riley's shoulders. "No bail. The judge saw the threats he texted you. Plus, the EPA charges are federal. He's looking at 10 years minimum." Riley sat on the bench outside the station, watching the city wake up. "He looked so small, Addie. In the end, he was just small." A black SUV pulled up. Wesley jumped out before it even came to a full stop. He looked frantic, his hair messy, still wearing yesterday's clothes. "Riley!" He ran over, checking her for injuries. "I heard they got him. Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" "I'm fine," Riley said, surprised by the raw fear in his eyes. "Just a few bruises. The servers are safe. The police are seizing them as evidence, but I'll get the data back eventually." Wesley let out a long breath, sitting down next to her. "I don't care about the servers. I was terrified he was going to hurt you." Riley looked at him. Wesley Newman, the visionary billionaire, wasn't thinking about the algorithm or the stock price. He was thinking about her. "I realized something in that basement," Riley said, taking a sip of the tea. "Gavin spent 10 years trying to make me feel like I was lucky to be in his orbit, like I was a passenger in his life." "And?" Wesley asked. "And I realized I was never the passenger." Riley smiled, a tired but genuine smile. "I was the engine, and engines don't need permission to run." Wesley put an arm around her shoulders, not possessively, but supportively. "Well, partner, the engine is safe, and we have a lot of work to do. The Jakarta Port Authority is waiting for your call." Riley laughed. It was a sound of pure relief. "Give me an hour to shower and change. Then we build." 3 days later, Hope Payne tried to visit Riley at Newman Tower. She didn't get past the lobby. Riley came down to meet her, flanked by security. "Riley, darling," Hope said, her voice trembling with false sweetness. "This is all a terrible misunderstanding. Gavin is unwell. We need to present a united front for the family." "There is no family, Hope," Riley said, standing in the middle of the atrium. "You watched him belittle me for a decade. You encouraged it. You told me my place was to be silent." "I was trying to help you be a good wife," Hope protested. "And now look, you've destroyed him. Who is going to pay for my cottage? Who is going to support the family name?" "That sounds like a logistics problem," Riley said coolly. "I suggest you find a solution that doesn't involve me. My charity work is now strictly focused on environmental causes, not toxic in-laws." "You ungrateful little—" Hope started, her mask slipping. "Goodbye, Hope." Riley turned her back. "Security, please escort Ms. Payne out and ensure her biometric data is flagged. She is not welcome in any Newman properties." As Riley stepped into the elevator, she saw Hope shouting at the glass doors, ignored by the busy professionals walking past. It was the last time she ever saw her mother-in-law. 6 months later, the wind whipped off the bay, fresh and clean. Riley stood on a podium, but this time it wasn't a sidewalk press conference. It was the opening ceremony for the Lennox Wetlands Restoration Project. Behind her, the rusted skeleton of Gavin's failed luxury condos had been torn down. In its place was a thriving nature reserve and a sustainable community center powered by Newman Tech solar skin. Riley adjusted the microphone. She wore a white power suit, crisp and tailored. She looked out at the crowd, city officials, environmentalists, and Wesley, who was sitting in the front row, beaming with pride. "Responsibility," Riley spoke to the crowd, her voice strong. "It's a heavy word. For a long time, I carried the responsibility for someone else's failures. I hid my own light because I was told it would blind the people I loved." She paused, looking at the camera crews. "But truth has a way of surfacing. You cannot build a legacy on a foundation of lies. You cannot build a life by making someone else small. Today we reclaim this land, not for profit, but for the future. The applause was thunderous. Later, at the reception, Addison handed Riley a glass of champagne. "You crushed it, boss," Addison grinned. "By the way, did you see the news?" "I don't watch the news much these days," Riley said. "Too busy." "Gavin took a plea deal," Addison said, her voice lowering. 8 years, fraud, embezzlement, arson, and he has to pay restitution. Every penny he has left is gone. Riley looked out at the water. She thought she would feel happy or vindicated, but mostly she just felt peace. The ledger was finally balanced. "He wanted a legacy," Riley said softly. "I suppose he got one. He's a cautionary tale." Wesley walked up, joining them. "Ready to go? The team in London is online in 20 minutes. They have a glitch in the grid." Riley set her glass down. She looked at her reflection in the window. No longer the tired wife. No longer the ghost. "I'm ready," Riley said. "Let's go fix it." She walked out of the event, side by side with her partner, stepping into a world that was finally big enough to hold her. Riley's journey wasn't just about leaving a bad marriage. It was about reclaiming her own value in a world that tried to discount it. Gavin Lennox thought power came from dominance, from shouting the loudest and spending the most. He never understood that true power is quiet. It's the ability to solve problems, to endure, and to build when everything else is falling apart. In the end, the data entry girl didn't just outsmart him, she outgrew him. Gavin was left in the ashes of his own ego, while Riley built a new world from the code up. Karma didn't just hit Gavin, it simply let him experience the consequences of his own reality, while Riley finally stepped into hers. Riley is seen in slow motion walking down a hallway at Newman Tech, looking confident. The screen fades to black with text overlay. "Know your worth." And that is exactly why you never let anyone tell you to make yourself small, just so they can feel big. Gavin learned the hard way that when you underestimate the person holding your life together, you're the one who ends up falling apart. What do you think? Did Gavin deserve a harsher punishment, or was losing his status the ultimate justice? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of karma and redemption, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Remember, the truth always compiles in the end. Thanks for watching, or